Hey guys, so in this video I want to talk to you about four types: INTPs, ENTPs, ISFJs, and also ESFJs. And they all belong to a grouping called the Alpha Quadrant. And the Alpha Quadrant includes the functions introvert thinking TI, extrovert feeling FE, introvert sensing SI, and extrovert intuition NE. And sociologists would say that this grouping, all the types share a certain similarity to them. And a lot of people may not see the similarity because they'll say that SFJs and NTPs are way too different from one another. And I would actually originally agree, but after observing these types over a long period of time, I actually do see an eerie similarity between them. And the Alpha Quadrant is generally characterized as having a light-hearted or less serious spirit compared to the other groupings. The other quadrants tend to have some sort of dead seriousness about them in some respect, in some way. But the Alpha Quadrant, the other quadrants may view the Alpha Quadrant as a bit shallow, not necessarily intellectually shallow, but kind of how they, I guess, how they treat life or people in their lives is kind of they don't want to get marred into this dead seriousness. They don't view that, they view that as being kind of morbid. So I kind of see the Alpha Quadrant having a certain collective shrug. So their collective shrug is kind of like this. And I could kind of see INTPs do that, ISFJs do that, ESFJs do that, and also ENTPs do that. It's like they're kind of, they have that light here. It's like they don't take things as seriously, so their shrug is like this. Whereas compare this to the Gamma Quadrant. So the Gamma Quadrant is the opposite quadrant, including NTJs and SFPs, and I would say their collective shrug is like this. Like, what the heck? Like, because they kind of judge more seriously. And it may be obvious to you that INTJs are like that, but ENTJs are very much like that too. And ISFPs and ESFPs also have that harsh judgment to them. It's not as clear with the ESFP because the ESFP has a demonstrative extrovert feeling function, which kind of makes them look like they're very welcoming, but they have a very harsh judgment about them when you really get to know them. So as I said, the Alpha Quadrant has a lighthearted spirit. But I would say when the Alpha Quadrant does get serious, the seriousness is not a dead seriousness, it's more like a certain finickiness or fussiness about things. So they seem to care about minutiae that the other quadrants, they don't care about as much as the Alpha Quadrant. And the reason why is that you have introverted thinking, which is a pedantic logical function that has its screws on way too tight. You have extrovert feeling, which is very obsessed with social norms and what's appropriate socially. And then you have extrovert intuition, which looks at every single possibility of, for instance, every single possibility of looking at what is the right logical framework or what is socially appropriate. And it says, since I looked at every single possibility, I should know what it is. So that causes a bit of finickiness about them. And also the other one is introvert sensing. This is how things have been done before. And so this is how it should be done. Or it's very finicky about how it experiences certain comforts, for example. So that you can see it in ESFJs. ESFJs are famous for making mountains out of molehills, and INTPs being very fussy about certain definitions of things, ENTPs as well. And there's also, ISFJs are also like very fussy and finicky about things as well. You guys are all just like really fussy people. Fussy people. But there's a certain like shrug about like, they're kind of forgiving in a way. Like if people cross them, they get tough on like, okay, you've broken this social norm, but then they kind of like write things off in a way. So I used to work in an organization that has a lot of people from the Alpha Quadrant. The main person in charge was an ENTP, and then the person who was basically the second in charge was an ISFJ, and there were a lot of ENTPs. There's some ISFJs in the organization too, but it all had this quality of like um, it's very the whole spirit of the organization, which I really like, by the way. It's very fun. It's very silly. Um, it's very forgiving. Like if you do something wrong, they're very kind of forgiving about it, and they kind of ignore it, and yeah, just a very lighthearted spirit. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is the two different types of ENTPs. So one ENTP appears like a very soft child. So it almost appears almost like a feeling type. And how it appears like a feeling type, like the facial features are kind of soft in a way. When they take positions on certain issues, they always take the softer position on the issues. So that's why they look like they're feeling types. The other type is very hard-edged and really splicingly pedantic or categorical in their statements. And this is the TI subtype. So the first subtype is the extrovert intuiting subtype, and the second one is this introvert thinking subtype. Um, so anyway, the so the next thing I kind of want to talk about is that I guess the extrovert feeling of the INTPs and the ENTPs, the extrovert feeling kind of has a puppy dog kind of quality, and especially clear in the ENTP type. It's like so long as you activate their extrovert feeling, like you kind of receive the ENTP very warmly, and you're welcoming to them. It's like they just like get really happy, and they just like light up like this, like a little child. And then it's a very endearing quality about them. And then this is kind of a bit more subtle in the INTP, but more definite in the ENTP. So and yeah, they kind of light up like this, and kind of has like a puppy dog kind of vibe to it. Next thing I want to talk about is yeah. So I find that very endearing. I find it attractive. So I am kind of attracted to INTP females. I just have to put up with the ENTP's very long-witted explanations about things that is not like it's kind of hard to pay attention to sometimes. It's kind of hard to follow, and also you have to kind of pick up after them too, because your introvert sensing is kind of bad. But anyway, so I want to compare ENTPs and INTPs for a bit, because a lot of ENTPs test as INTPs. So what I would say is that ENTPs have a lot of jerky movements. They move in jerky ways, not necessarily like super dynamic. Some of them are more dynamic, but some of them are stiller. But even when you look at their movements, if you look at the very subtle movements they make, it's all like kind of jagged, sharp movements. But if you look at INTPs, their movements are very languid and very smooth. They move very smoothly. And I have a video of NT Support, which is a YouTube channel, and a video of an ENTP and INTP talking right next to each other. I just want you to notice their movement. The ENTP has the jerky movement, and the INTP has smooth movements. And also ENTP and INTP, they have childlike qualities, but ultimately the ENTP appears like a child. And an INTP is kind of when they speak and how they present themselves, because they have these slow and languid movements, they appear more like an old person. So you kind of, when I look at an INTP, I kind of think of a senior citizen. They talk slower than ENTP. The ENTP has a faster pace to their speech, and they have more jerky movements, and they're like super excited. And in INTPs, when they talk, it's more like an old person. So I have that down below. And okay, the other clear difference is the eye test. So I have a video about what makes you an ENTP or ENFP, and one thing is that they can't keep their pupils still. Their eyes always like move around like this. So if you look at, if you fail that test, if you can't keep your eyes at the tip of the pencil without straining, you are definitely an ENTP. If you're trying to decide between ENTP and INTP, you're definitely an ENTP. And INTP can keep their pupils straight. So next thing I want to talk about is ISFJs and ESFJs. So I think these types, they kind of present themselves as being kind of very jolly or silly. And as a result, people may not realize how intricate their thinking is. So actually, ISFJs and ESFJs have a much more intricate kind of thinking pattern than what they appear, because what people see is kind of like the jolliness and the silliness of them. And they appear to say or do like these very silly or unimportant things, or they're focused on recreational activities or hobby-like activities. So people don't take them seriously, but actually there's a lot more intricate thinking that goes behind that. So actually many representatives of ISFJs are actually particularly clever thinkers and very sophisticated and nuanced thinkers. And you have to really, really pay attention in order to pick this out behind the facade that they have. So, and same thing with ESFJs. ESFJs could act really, really silly. ISFJs have a form of cognition, and this is a concept by Victor Gulenko, is that they have a style of thinking. It's called dialectic algorithmic, and they share this pattern of thinking with types that you associate as being like very intelligent, like INTJ, ENFJ. So, and it's basically it's a genius form of thinking style, and it's something that I was eventually able to pick out. So when it's like the ISFJ is saying these like things that seems like kind of simple on the surface, but actually it's very carefully calculated. So when I look at ISFJ thinking, I kind of look at this like their things like I kind of think about this hand motion. It's like very intricate, and as a result of this thinking, they're able to achieve their aims because they think in a very clever way, but it's not in a way that's obvious to other people. I think the same thing, ESFJs, they don't have that style of thinking, but they have an energetic or sunny mask. But they also clearly have aims. So I want to compare ISFJs and ESFJs with INFJs and ENFJs. So INFJs, ENFJs, obviously they want to influence people. And because they're NF types and NFJ types, it's like very obvious. It's very upfront that they're trying to influence people towards a certain purpose. So that's why it's very clear cut. Whereas SFJs, ISFJs, ESFJs, their dispositions just sunny or jolly or silly or whatever, or to other types not caring about things that are like important in an obvious way. So that's why it's easy to miss the kind of way they're trying to influence people, and it's just as sophisticated and intricate as an NFJ. In ESFJ, the example I could think of is that I could think of two ESFJs, and what they did was that they would tell a joke that would make them seem dumb, and everyone would buy into that joke and think that the ESFJ is dumb. But it took me years to realize actually they did it on purpose. they actually did it on purpose because I read their